left after 1 year and went to this island called Blackamatty in those days, now called, well, we called it Hell Island, but it's now changed its name, it's called Sentosa, which I believe means Paradise Island.
We went on to Blackamatty and there was this, where our prisoners had been and that. Oh, you can't describe it to anybody. You can't describe one of those camps.
To mark the 70th anniversary of the end of World War II and the liberation of the Far East prisoners of war camps, the records of servicemen and women and civilians who were taken captive during the war will be published for the first time at Findmypast. Included in the record is one Dr. Bill Franklin, who was a prisoner and doctor at the notorious Changi prisoner of war camp in Singapore.
It was 17 or 18 miles, but somehow or other we got lorries to take us, so I didn't have that awful march. Here I was after 10 or 12 days, a prisoner of war, but still hadn't seen my captors at all, and until that journey out, and at Singapore Cricket Club, and that was the first Japanese I ever saw very near the pitch, defecating publicly. Why he chose such a public place to carry out this, I had no idea, but that was the first Japanese I ever saw.
Alongside the records of the Japanese prisoners of war camps are the records of Nazi prisoner of war camps, including Stalag Luft 3. The camp was made famous by the mass escape of British and Commonwealth prisoners of war that formed the basis of the film classic The Great Escape. The plan was for 160, with 40 in reserve, to escape during darkness on the night of the 24th to 25th of March. An escape committee selected to go first those who were best suited for escape, e.g. those who spoke German. All appeared to lay stress on the fact that the prisoners were not in uniform and should be treated as civilians. The shootings took place at the express personal orders of the former Führer Adolf Hitler. I was in the hall when the torpedo hit, and it immediately filled with water. 212 were rescued out of 800, whose leg was successfully amputated, although Major MacLeod was not permitted any anaesthetic supply for the job. In their habitual costume, Allied prisoners of war had their last meal before being taken away to base camp and freedom. Second Lieutenant Bushell, British. First Lieutenant Casey, British. Second Lieutenant Catenac, Australia. They were given no medical supplies. They were treated like animals. Rice, however, their only food, was in sufficient quantity to keep them reasonably alive.
If any of the men misbehaved, then we as officers in the evening parade would all be lined up, and they hit us as hard as they could with their fists. And I was knocked unconscious, so at the end of it all, when it was all over, I was going back and talking to my officer commanding, I said, well, that's the best bashing I've ever had. I didn't feel a thing. I know I'd been bashed because I had to spit out a molar tooth. And he said, we thought we'd lost you, doctor. And I said, why? He said, well, you were out for some time on the floor, but when you got up from the ground, you staggered and your hands were both clenched as though with fists, as though you were going to hit the officer. And that, of course, would be unforgivable. And there was a private just by him, and he was just going to bayonet you. And for some reason, the officer put his arm up to stop this man from banning me. No, I just said, no, best bashing I've ever had, never felt a thing.
Going through the Straits of Sumatra, the pipes went that the Japs had picked up, of course. You should have heard the chair that went up all over the shop, you know what I mean? And order come through, splice the main brace, double the rum ration.
I always say that, and I was taught this by my father, you mustn't hate anyone. No, I don't hate the Japanese. It doesn't do them any harm to hate them, but it does me harm. Psychologically, I think hate is a horrible word.
The Findmypast collection, digitised from original records held at the National Archive, contains over 1 million records and 360,000 images, including personal diaries and photos. When published, it will provide an invaluable resource for historians, genealogists, and people who wish to research this period of history and find the details of parents and grandparents whose lives were forever changed.